Owl Speaks by admin on March 5th, 2013, staff. Over the years, members of G2's staff have held various positions within the United States government. The following series of conversations were taken over a one-year period and quite revealing in the true nature and intention from some of our so-called leaders. G2, it's been a long time since we talked. Anything new going on? Owl. Interesting question. Unbeknownst to most, things have been going as planned on this planet for thousands of years since Atlantis succumbed to the sea. What we believe shapes who and what we become. Those who shaped what we believe have shaped our destiny. Reversing course now would not alter the final outcome. G2. Last time we talked, you mentioned population reduction was coming. Can you elaborate? Owl. Reduction is about to occur using several devices and process of selection. Man has defied nature by allowing those who under nature's laws would be terminated to actually reproduce and spread their defective genes to the next generation. This growing threat to our species was recognized decades ago, and eugenics was born. The order of things must be obeyed in all of nature's laws, or catastrophic failures and extinctions will occur. Nature was and is the perfect machine, but it has no conscience, no compassion, and no regret. These illogical emotions lead to illogical actions and results. Therefore, mankind has to take steps to replace the balance he himself had upset, or be destroyed by that imbalance. The chips will fall where they may. The guide stones will show you the way to keep this balance and preserve this planet and our supremacy upon it for eternity. It must be done and will be done. I wish you well. G2. How do you know that you are safe from these coming actions of population reduction? Owl. Because I come from a long line of practicing Freemasons. My grandfather was a United States Senator, and my uncle is currently serving in the House of Representatives. It is time to reduce the herd immediately. All other programs have proven to be ineffective. Henry Kissinger adopted the eugenics program and fluoridated the country's water supply, thinking that the larger population could be made docile and controllable. What we got was an increase in stupid and lazy people. Now it is critical and more direct, while drastic measures will be taken. G2. What was the original vision for mankind before we became a burden? Owl. The original vision was for world democracy, or rather world capitalism, in which Americans would be the super consumers. The television became the teacher of right, wrong, acceptable, unacceptable, and a picture of what typical life should be. Hypnotized by the box, the plan was working beautifully, until now that is. Rex 84 is about to be realized. G2. What did you think of the article that I sent? Owl. I feel the author is far too optimistic about the end result. In reality, once martial law is established and the true shadow government, FEMA, is in complete control of the population, they will never allow cessation or free trade to continue. Those who can work will be forced to do so, much like China or pre-democracy Russia. The border between Mexico and the United States will no longer exist, but the immigration will be reversed. Get used to the curfews and mass production zones. The healthcare dilemma will be solved when nobody gets treatment and the sick and elderly perish. We have a socialist in office now, and all pieces to this puzzle are in place. The only way to reverse this course is a major or even world war. Don't be surprised when Israel lights the match this summer. G2. We hear a lot about these different organizations that run the country. What is the hierarchy of the Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg Group, and the Council on Foreign Relations? Owl. One cannot be separate if they are part of all three entities. However, they are not the sum of all three entities. These three entities were working toward one common goal until the other factors changed direction, leaving the future of Israel uncertain. Omega is the true face of the New World Order, not Bilderberg or Trilateral. They are just parts of the machine. Integral part, yes, but the sum of all things, no. The pavers of the road are not always the ones who decide its destination. G2. What exactly is it that you wanted as an outcome for the world? Owl. Wanted? No, what I wanted was global domination by means of nuclear primacy. The vision was that of America, the white-collar civilization, modern-day Babylon. Those who drink from golden goblets miss their shot at the brass ring. Now the American lifestyle will be compared to that of the Chinese commoner thanks to Israel. Scorched earth. Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist, is actually taking their side, concealing their faces from the conspiracy crowd and directing their attention to Omega's creation. G2. You mentioned that most Americans are slaves. How so? Owl. There are many forms of enslavement. Some are quite manageable and rewarding. Take, for example, the current state, function, and purpose of the common American. He sees no bars, yet he is indeed imprisoned by his own gluttony and his insatiable appetite for entertainment. His earnings are generously garnished by a parasitic government that he thinks was elected by his fellow countrymen. He is bombarded by a media which distorts the truth so effectively that he can no longer tell the difference between fact and fiction. His reality is manufactured by their perpetual lies. He uses things but rarely owns them. Still, he calls them his own. He waves the flag of his country and fights on foreign soils for unclear objectives. Dies without ever having accomplished anything other than consumption of mass quantities of useless items. This type of slave is content, is he not? G2. I recently noticed that many Americans are leaving the country and going to New Zealand. What's your take on this? Owl. Well, New Zealand is a touchy subject. The Freemasons consider it an experiment in the new social order. Rockefeller and Spignew infiltrated the government of New Zealand with a massive loan at huge interest rates in return for implementation of certain social and financial programs designed by Henry Kissinger himself. That's about all I can tell you now. You seem to have stumbled on a dark and well-kept secret that only a few New Zealanders have recently become aware of themselves. The North American Union will be precipitated by a union between Australia and New Zealand. Watch Australia closely. They adopted a massive eugenics program. Fluoridation of all water and many processed foods is about to begin this year. New Zealand has been purchased by the international bankers and oil barons. Their government was bankrupt in the early 80s, and they were snubbed by the international community, or so it appeared. This led them to look for a financial bailout from Spignew, Rockefeller, and Rothschild at a ridiculously high interest rate. They loaded up their government seats with people who supported a secular, progressive agenda and Henry Kissinger's eugenics program. Tax and spend, divide and conquer, control and enslave. Sound familiar? G2. You mentioned various elite groups do not always get along. Can you explain that? Owl. Trilateral never towed the line with the Bilderbergers or the Omegas where Israel is concerned. They only think about continued progress of the industrial and militarization of the planet. They see the banking cartel and the neocons as disruptive and dangerous. They have the same goal, control the sheep and the money. But Israel is simply not worth it to them. They don't wish to see a Zionist-controlled world. That was never their vision, nor do I. G2. You mentioned Omega quite a few times. What exactly is that, and how do you become one? Owl. Ultimately by birth. Most Omega members are indoctrinated in Ivy League schools, Skull and Bones, Dead Poet Society, etc. They usually end up in powerful positions politically and within powerful appointed positions above the law and anonymous. George Bush and his sons are Omega men. That ends part one, and now we move on to part two.